Maya Chen pressed her face against the curved viewport of Outpost Sigma 7, watching the swirling purple storms of the gas giant Kepler-47s paint the observation deck in ethereal light. At 10 years old, she already knew more about exoplanetary weather patterns than most adults back on Earth. That's what happened when your grandfather was humanity's leading xenometeorologist. Maya. Dr. William Kin's voice echoed through the station's corridors. Have you finished your physics homework? Almost done. Yeah. She called back, using the Mandarin term for grandfather that she'd stubbornly maintained even after 3 years in space. Her tablet displayed a half-completed problem set on orbital mechanics, but she couldn't tear her eyes away from the hypnotic dance of colors outside. The outpost shuddered slightly as a supply ship docked at one of the external ports. Maya perked up. Supply days meant new books, fresh fruits, and sometimes letters from her parents back on Earth. She gathered her studying materials and headed toward the docking bay, her magnetic boots clicking against the metal floor. The station's artificial gravity was kept at 0.7 Earth standard to conserve power, making each step feel lighter than it should. Maya had learned to adjust her movements after numerous embarrassing collisions with walls during her first month aboard. Now she moved with the practiced grace of a space-born child, even though she'd spent her early years planetside. As she approached the docking bay, raised voices caught her attention. Not the usual friendly banter of supply crews, but tense, worried tones. Maya slowed her pace, hovering near the corridor junction. Absolutely cannot accommodate you, the station's security chief, Officer Sarah Martinez, was saying. This is a research outpost, not a refugee center. Please. The responding voice was unlike anything Maya had ever heard, like wind chimes made of crystal. Our ship's quantum core is destabilizing. We only need 3 days to effect repairs. Maya peered around the corner. Her eyes widened at the sight of 3 beings that seemed to be made of living crystal. Their bodies were semi-transparent, with complex geometric patterns swirling beneath their surfaces. The largest one, presumably the speaker, stood nearly 8 feet tall. Beside it was a slightly smaller crystal being in between them, a child-sized crystal entity that somehow managed to look scared despite having no recognizable face. Our protocols are clear, Officer Martinez insisted, though she sounded regretful. Without proper documentation and clearance, we can pay, the crystal being said quickly, producing what looked like a handful of shimmering stones. These are quantum crystals, worth more than. I'm sorry, but we can't accept unauthorized currency. Martinez's hand rested nervously on her stun baton. You'll have to try the commercial station in the Proxima sector. Maya's heart clenched as she watched the crystal family huddle closer together. The child-sized one was trembling, sending rainbow refractions skittering across the walls. She knew that Proxima was over 2 weeks away at standard speed, far too long for a failing quantum core. Before she could second-guess herself, Maya stepped into view. I can pay. All eyes, both human and crystalline, turned to her. Maya pulled out her credit chip, the one containing her carefully saved allowance, meant for a new set of astronomy holobooks. I have 500 credits. That's enough for 3 days of docking fees and basic supplies. Right? Officer Martinez's stern expression softened. Maya, honey, this isn't. Please. Maya met the security chief's eyes. He always says that science is about helping people understand each other. Isn't this the same thing? Martinez looked from Maya to the crystal beings and back again. After a long moment, she sighed. Your grandfather's humanitarian streak is clearly genetic. She turned to the crystal family. 3 days, no more. And you'll be restricted to the visitors section. The crystal being's surfaces rippled with what Maya somehow knew was relief. The parent beings bent in what appeared to be a formal vow. We are in your debt, young human, the first one said, their chimes taking on a warmer tone. I am Vertex, this is my partner Facet, and our child Prism. The child-sized being, Prism, approached Maya with tentative steps. Their surface shimmered with complex patterns that reminded Maya of the equations in her physics homework. "Thank you," they chimed softly. "We were so scared." Maya smiled. "I'm Maya. Do you like space storms? There's a really good view of some from the observation deck." As Maya led her new friend toward the viewport, she didn't notice the dark shape that briefly eclipsed the distant stars, nor did she hear the encrypted transmission that pulsed from it. "Target located. The child's empathy confirms the prophecy. Commence Operation Obsidian Dawn." Dr. William Chen looked up from his weather models as Maya's laughter echoed through the station, mixed with an otherworldly chiming sound. He smiled, proud of his granddaughter's boundless compassion, unaware that her simple act of kindness had just set in motion events that would change the course of human history. 7 hours after Maya had used her savings to help the crystalline family, alarms blared through Outpost Sigma 7. She jolted awake in her small cabin, the purple light of Kepler-47 replaced by pulsing red emergency beacons. "Maya," her grandfather's voice crackled through the intercom. "Meet me in the lab immediately. Don't stop for anything." She scrambled into her station jumpsuit, heart pounding. The artificial gravity seemed to flutter, making her stomach lurch. As she ran through the corridors, she passed Officer Martinez barking orders into her comm unit. "Unknown vessel, mass signature larger than anything in our database," Martinez was saying. "No response to hails. What do you mean the defense grid is offline?" Maya burst into her grandfather's lab. Dr. Chen was hunched over his primary console, fingers flying across multiple holographic displays. The normally orderly space was chaos. Equipment packed into cases, data cores being wiped, emergency beacons prepped for launch. "Lai Yi, what's happening?" "Someone's very interested in our little outpost," he said grimly, not looking up from his work. "And they're not here for my weather reports." He gestured to a screen showing a massive vessel approaching the station. It seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, its hull a void against the stars. "The Crystal family," Maya whispered. "Are they okay?" "They're gone." Dr. Chen finally turned to face her. "Disappeared about an hour ago. Left behind a message I'm still trying to decode." But he was cut off as the station shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across his displays. Multiple breaches detected. The station's AI announced calmly, "Unknown entities have boarded in sections 3, 7, and 12. Dr. Chen grabbed a small device from his desk, his prototype quantum scanner, the one he used to study the strange weather patterns of gas giants. "Maya, listen carefully. What you did today, helping those beings, it was brave and kind, and exactly what I would have hoped you'd do. But it's also made you very, very important to some dangerous people." "I don't understand," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady as another impact rocked the station. "The crystal beings weren't just refugees," he explained, attaching the quantum scanner to Maya's jumpsuit. "They were testing humanity, testing you. And you passed their test in a way that's made some very powerful entities very nervous." Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. They didn't sound human. "Hide," Dr. Chen ordered, pushing Maya toward his private office. "No matter what happens, no matter what you hear, stay hidden until I come get you. If I don't." He pressed a data chip into her hand. "Find Dr. Sarah Lakshmi on Europa Station. Show her this. She'll understand." No." Maya started to protest, but he was already sealing the office door. Through the small window, she watched as the lab's main door burst inward. The beings that entered seemed to be made of living shadow, their forms constantly shifting and flowing like ink in water. Where their feet touched the deck plating, frost spread in crystalline patterns. The temperature in the lab plummeted. Dr. William Chen, one of the shadow beings, said, its voice like ice cracking, "You will tell us where to find the child." Maya's grandfather stood straight and proud, his white hair gleaming under the emergency lights. "I'm afraid you'll have to be more specific. We run a full education program here for station families. Do not play games. The shadow being's form rippled with anger. The one who showed kindness to the crystalline guardians. The one who proved humanity's worth. Where is she? Ah, Dr. Chen said, casually picking up a piece of equipment. You mean the child who demonstrated that humanity's greatest strength is its capacity for compassion. The one who proved we're ready to join the greater galactic community. That child. The shadow beings surged forward, but Dr. Chen held up his hand. Before you do anything rash, you might want to look at these readings. He held up a tablet displaying complex equations. You see, I've been studying quantum weather patterns for 30 years. I know how energy works on the most fundamental level, including the energy that makes up your forms. The shadow beings hesitated. You are stalling. No, Dr. Chen smiled. I'm teaching. Something else we humans are good at. His finger hovered over the tablet's surface. Would you like to see what happens when I introduce a quantum resonance cascade into your molecular structure? Maya watched, hardly daring to breathe, as her grandfather faced down beings of living darkness with nothing but science and courage. The shadow beings drew back slightly, their forms wavering with uncertainty. The child is gone, Dr. Chen said firmly. I teleported her to safety the moment we detected your ship. You'll never find her, but I'll make you a deal. Leave now. Leave humanity alone, and I won't be forced to demonstrate just how much we've learned about quantum physics. For a moment, Maya thought it had worked. Then one of the shadow beings laughed, a sound like breaking icicles. Brave words, scientist, but we can taste your lies. The child is here. And now, its form expanded, filling the lab with freezing darkness. Now we will learn just how much pain a human can endure before they break. Maya pressed her hands against the office window, watching in horror as the shadows engulfed her grandfather. But just before they reached him, Dr. Chen caught her eye and winked. Then he pressed something on his tablet. The lab erupted in brilliant, searing light. Maya squeezed her eyes shut, hearing unearthly screeches and the sound of her grandfather's voice shouting something in Mandarin. The same phrase he always used when he solved a particularly difficult equation. When she opened her eyes again, the lab was empty. No shadow beings, no frost, and no grandfather. The quantum scanner on her jumpsuit beeped softly, displaying coordinates she didn't recognize. On the data chip in her trembling hand, Chinese characters glowed faintly. The storm is not the end. It is only the beginning. Maya huddled in the station's emergency shuttle, her grandfather's quantum scanner clutched to her chest. After the lab incident, she'd followed the evacuation protocols they'd drilled countless times, though they'd never felt so terrifyingly real before. The small craft hummed around her, its autopilot following the coordinates that had appeared on the scanner. She wasn't crying. Crying wouldn't help find Yi. Instead, she focused on the data chip he'd given her, now plugged into the shuttle's computer. Most of its contents were encrypted, but one file had opened immediately, her grandfather's research notes on the quantum weather patterns of Kepler-47c. The storms aren't random, she read aloud, hearing his voice in the words. They're a language. The gas giant isn't just a planet. It's trying to tell us something. The shuttle's view screen suddenly flickered. A familiar chiming voice filled the cabin. Maya Chen, can you hear us? She looked up to see Prism, the crystal child, their form shimmering with complex patterns. But they weren't really there. It was more like a hologram made of pure light. Prism, what's happening? Where's my grandfather? He is alive, Prism chimed, their patterns shifting to show brief images. Dr. Chen suspended in some kind of stasis field, surrounded by shadow beings. The Obsidian Collective cannot harm him without risking harm to the knowledge he possesses, but they will not hold him forever. The Obsidian Collective. Those shadow things. Maya's mind raced. What do they want? Why did they attack us? Because you proved humanity was ready. Prism's form rippled with what might have been pride. When you helped us without hesitation, without reward, You demonstrated that humans could be trusted with the greatest secret in the universe. The view screen filled with swirling mathematical patterns that Maya recognized from her physics homework, but these were far more complex, more beautiful. My people, the crystalline guardians, have watched over the quantum foundations of reality since the first stars ignited. We maintain the balance between order and chaos, between light and dark. But we are few now, and growing fewer. The Obsidian Collective, Maya guessed. They're destroying you. They seek to control reality itself, Prism confirmed. They believe that by eliminating uncertainty, by freezing the quantum flux of existence, they can create perfect order. They do not understand that such order would be death for all things. Maya thought of the frost the shadow beings had left in their wake, of how they seemed to drink in light itself. But what does this have to do with me? Your grandfather understood more than he revealed. Prism's patterns shifted to show Dr. Chen's equations. The quantum weather patterns he studied. They're echoes of our work, ripples in reality caused by our efforts to maintain the balance. He was closer than any human before to understanding the true nature of existence. And when you helped us, Prism continued, their light growing brighter. When you showed pure compassion without understanding who or what we were, you proved that humanity could handle this knowledge. More than that, you proved you could help us preserve it. The quantum scanner on Maya's jumpsuit suddenly hummed to life, projecting patterns that perfectly matched Prism's own crystalline structure. The scanner, she breathed. Yi modified it somehow. He encoded quantum harmonics into the device. Prism confirmed. Patterns that could resonate with our crystalline forms. But it needed a catalyst, an act of genuine kindness to activate its potential. You provided that catalyst, Maya Chen. And now, the patterns from the scanner began to spread, surrounding Maya in a cocoon of shimmering light. She gasped as she felt something wake up inside her, like a new sense she'd never known she had. Suddenly, she could see the quantum threads that bound reality together, could feel the delicate balance between possibility and certainty. What's happening to me? You're becoming a bridge, Prism chimed excitedly. A being who can walk between quantum states, who can help us maintain the balance. The first human to ever achieve this state. Maya looked at her hands, watching quantum possibilities shimmer around them like aurora borealis. Can this help me save my grandfather? It can help you save everyone, Prism said solemnly. But you'll need training. The coordinates in your shuttle, they'll take you to our hidden sanctuary. There you'll learn to use these abilities, to understand the true nature of reality. And the Obsidian Collective, they'll follow me. They'll try. But they don't understand human ingenuity. Your grandfather proved that. Prism's form began to fade. Maya Chen, you stand at a crossroads. The balance of all reality hangs in the balance. Are you ready to become something more than human? Maya thought of her grandfather facing down the shadow beings with nothing but science and courage. She thought of the Crystal family, seeking help from strangers in their time of need. She thought of all the stories Yi had told her about humanity's greatest achievements, how they'd always come from people willing to take a leap into the unknown. I'm ready, she said firmly. Teach me everything. As Prism faded away completely, the shuttle's engines hummed with new purpose, carrying Maya toward her destiny. On the view screen, the quantum weather patterns of Kepler-47 swirled in patterns that, for the first time, she could begin to read. The crystalline sanctuary defied everything Maya thought she knew about space stations. Instead of metal and plastic, it was grown from living crystal, its faceted corridors shifting and flowing like liquid geometry. 3 weeks had passed since her arrival, though time felt different here, moving in quantum leaps and probabilistic waves. Focus, Maya. Vertex instructed, their crystalline form refracting rainbow light across the training chamber. Feel the quantum threads. Don't try to control them. Dance with them. Maya stood in the center of the room, her grandfather's quantum scanner now integrated into a crystalline suit that covered her whole body. She reached out with her new senses, feeling the delicate web of possibilities that underpinned reality. The suit hummed in harmony with her thoughts, amplifying her connection to the quantum realm. "I think I've got it," she said, then gasped as the air around her hands began to crystallize into complex patterns. No, wait. The patterns shattered, sending tiny shards of probability scattering across the floor, where they faded back into potential energy. Maya slumped, frustrated. "I'll never get this right." "You're thinking like a human scientist," Facet chimed, gliding forward, always seeking to understand, to control. But quantum reality isn't about control. It's about harmony. "Show her, Prism." The crystal child, who had become Maya's closest friend, stepped into the training circle. Their form began to pulse with intricate patterns that Maya now recognized as quantum equations made manifest. "Remember the storms on Kepler-47c?" Prism chimed. "They're not just weather. They're probability waves dancing with possibility. Like this." Prism's body seemed to flow like liquid crystal, creating shapes that shouldn't have been possible in normal spacetime. But Maya could see it wasn't about forcing reality to change. It was about finding the places where reality wanted to flow and gently encouraging it. "The Obsidian Collective doesn't understand this," Vertex explained. "They see quantum uncertainty as a flaw to be corrected, probability as a weakness to be eliminated. They don't realize that without uncertainty, without possibility, the universe would become static, dead." Maya thought about her grandfather's research, how he'd spent years studying quantum weather patterns not to control them, but to understand their dance. Like the difference between trying to freeze a river and learning to swim with its current. "Exactly," Prism chimed excitedly. "Try again, but this time, don't think about what you want to happen. Feel what could happen naturally." Maya closed her eyes, letting her quantum senses expand. The threads of probability swirled around her like currents in an invisible ocean. Instead of grabbing them, she let herself flow with them, becoming part of their dance. When she opened her eyes, the air around her was filled with crystalline structures that moved and shifted like schools of fish, each one a different possibility made momentarily manifest. "Beautiful," Facet hummed. "You're learning faster than any human we've ever encountered." But will it be enough? Maya let the structures dissolve back into probability. "The Obsidian Collective still has my grandfather, and they're getting closer to their goal of freezing all reality into perfect order. Which is why we need to show you something," Vertex said solemnly. "Something no human has ever seen." They led Maya deeper into the sanctuary, through corridors that seemed to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Finally, they entered a vast chamber that took Maya's breath away. At its center floated what looked like a galaxy made of living crystal, but as she watched, she realized it was actually a map of reality itself, showing not just physical space, but probability space as well. "The quantum nexus," Prism explained. "From here, we can see the flows of possibility throughout the universe. Look." They guided Maya's attention to a dark spot in the crystalline galaxy, a void that was slowly spreading. "The Obsidian Collective's influence grows. They've already frozen several quantum nexus points, creating zones of absolute certainty where no change is possible." "And my grandfather?" Maya asked, scanning the magnificent display. Vertex manipulated the crystalline flows, zooming in on a particular region. "Here, their primary research facility. They're trying to use his knowledge of quantum weather patterns to understand how we maintain the balance. If they succeed, they'll be able to find all your nexus points," Maya finished. "They'll know exactly where to strike to freeze reality permanently." She studied the facility's location, noting how probability currents flowed around it. "But look, there are weak points in their certainty. Places where quantum fluctuations still peek through." "You see it too?" Prism asked excitedly. "The Obsidian Collective is so focused on eliminating uncertainty that they don't notice how it naturally builds up around their attempts at perfect order, like pressure building behind a dam." Maya's mind raced with possibilities. She thought about her grandfather's equations, about quantum weather patterns, about the difference between controlling something and working with it. "I have an idea," she said slowly. "But it's either brilliant or completely crazy." Often the same thing with humans. Face it chimed with what sounded like amusement. The collective thinks uncertainty is a weakness, right? So they'll expect us to try to fight it, to impose our own certainty against theirs. Maya manipulated the quantum flows in the display, highlighting particular patterns. But what if instead we embrace uncertainty? What if we amplify it? The crystalline guardians studied her adjustments to the display, their forms flickering with increasing excitement as they understood her plan. Instead of trying to break through their defenses, Maya continued, "We create a quantum resonance cascade, like the one Yi threatened them with, but not to destroy, to transform, to show them that perfect certainty is impossible, not because reality is flawed, but because possibility is what makes reality alive." "It's dangerous," Vertex warned. "If the resonance pattern isn't perfect, it could shatter the quantum fabric of that entire sector." "Then we'll make it perfect." Maya straightened her shoulders, feeling more certain than she had since this whole adventure began. "My grandfather took a chance on humanity being ready for this knowledge. Now it's my turn to prove him right." The crystalline galaxy spun above them, possibilities dancing like stars. Somewhere out there, Dr. Chen was waiting, holding out against the darkness with nothing but his wit and wisdom. Maya wouldn't let him down. "When do we start?" Prism asked, practically vibrating with anticipation. Maya smiled, watching quantum possibilities swirl around her hands like tiny galaxies. "We already have. The probability waves are already in motion. Now we just need to dance with them." The Obsidian Collective's research facility hung in space like a black diamond, drinking in starlight. Maya observed it from the bridge of a crystalline ship, her quantum-enhanced senses letting her see the currents of probability flowing around the structure. Dark energy barriers created zones of absolute certainty, while patrol ships made of living shadow maintained a perpetual vigilance. "They've detected us," Vertex announced, their crystalline form pulsing with tactical data. "Shadow-class vessels approaching." Maya nodded, feeling strangely calm. "Good. They're doing exactly what probability suggested they would." She turned to Prism, who was monitoring the quantum resonance generators they'd spent the last week configuring. "Ready?" "Ready." The crystal child's form sparkled with excitement. "The uncertainty amplifiers are charged to maximum capacity." "Remember," Faceit warned, "we'll only have one chance. Once we initiate the cascade, the laws of probability themselves will be in flux." Maya touched the quantum scanner that had once belonged to her grandfather, now fully integrated into her crystalline suit. "Then let's make it count." The shadow ships surrounded them, their weapons charged with void energy designed to freeze probability itself. A cold voice echoed through their communication system. "Crystalline vessel, you have entered a zone of absolute certainty. Surrender the human child, or be eliminated with 100% probability." Maya opened a channel. "This is Maya Chen. Before you shoot, I think your leaders would like to speak with me." After all, she smiled, remembering her grandfather's tactics. "There's something about quantum weather patterns they still don't understand." There was a pause, probability waves swirling in complex patterns around the shadow ships. Finally, the voice returned. "You will be brought aboard. Any deviation from absolute compliance will result in your grandfather's termination." "Gotcha," Maya whispered as the tractor beam engaged. She glanced at her crystalline friends. "Ready to dance." The shadow beings were waiting in the docking bay, their forms rippling with barely contained violence. They escorted Maya through corridors of perfect darkness, where even quantum probability seemed to die. But Maya's enhanced senses could detect tiny fluctuations, uncertainty building up like pressure behind a dam, just as she predicted. They brought her to a vast chamber that seemed to exist in negative space, and there, suspended in a stasis field that froze probability around him, was Dr. Chen. "Ye, Maya whispered. "Quite an impressive man, "Your grandfather," said a new voice. A figure emerged from the shadows, larger than the others, its form constantly shifting between states of darkness. His understanding of quantum mechanics is remarkable for a human, almost comparable to our own. The Void Sovereign. Facet had warned her about this being. The leader of the Obsidian Collective, obsessed with imposing perfect order on an uncertain universe. "You're keeping him alive because you need him," Maya said. "Because even with all your power, you still don't understand how the quantum weather patterns work. A temporary gap in our knowledge." The Sovereign's voice was like black ice cracking. "One you're going to help us fill. We've analyzed your quantum signature, Maya Chen. You've been taught the crystalline secrets. You will share them, or watch as we extract them from your grandfather's mind." Messily, Maya took a deep breath, feeling probability currents swirling around them all. "Actually, I'm here to show you something even more important." She raised her hands, crystalline suit glowing. "Want to see a really cool weather pattern?" Before the shadow beings could react, Maya activated the quantum resonance generators hidden within her suit. The crystalline ship above began broadcasting matching frequencies, creating a harmonic cascade that rippled through probability itself. The Obsidian Collective's carefully maintained certainty began to fluctuate. "What are you doing?" the Sovereign demanded as random quantum events began manifesting throughout the chamber. "Stop this at once." "I can't stop it," Maya said calmly. "Nobody can. That's the whole point. The more you try to impose perfect order, the more chaos builds up to balance it. It's not a flaw in reality. It's how reality works." The stasis field holding Dr. Chen flickered and failed. He dropped to the floor, immediately rolling into a defensive stance. "Maya, what in Einstein's name?" "The quantum weather patterns, Yi," she called out. "They're not just patterns, they're reality's pressure release valve. The crystalline guardians don't maintain the balance by fighting uncertainty. They maintain it by giving uncertainty safe ways to express itself." The Sovereign's form was fluctuating wildly now, trying to impose order even as probability itself rebelled. "This is impossible. We are the Obsidian Collective. We bring perfect certainty." "Nothing is perfectly certain," Dr. Chen said, understanding lighting his eyes. "That's what makes the universe beautiful." He looked at his granddaughter with pride. "And sometimes the most uncertain things, like a child's simple act of kindness, turn out to be the most important." The quantum cascade reached its peak. Reality itself seemed to hold its breath as possibility and certainty fought for dominance. The shadow beings began to change, their absolute darkness fragmenting into spectrums of probability. "You can fight it and shatter," Maya told the Sovereign, "or you can learn to dance with it. Your choice. But it is a choice, and that's kind of the point." For a moment, she thought the Sovereign would choose destruction. But then, slowly, its form began to shift, darkness giving way to something new. A beam of quantum probability, neither perfectly dark nor perfectly light, but alive with possibility. One by one, the other shadow beings followed suit, their forms transforming as they embraced uncertainty. The research facility itself began to change, its rigid structure becoming more fluid, more natural. "I understand now," the being that had been the Sovereign said, its voice now containing harmonics of light amid the darkness. "Perfect order, perfect certainty. They would have been perfect death." Maya ran to her grandfather, hugging him tight. "I used your quantum scanner," she said. "Hope you don't mind." Dr. Chen laughed, holding her close. "My brilliant girl, you didn't just use it, you improved it." And more importantly, he looked around at the transformed chamber, where former shadow beings were experimenting with their new quantum forms. "You prove that humanity's greatest strength isn't our science or our certainty. It's our ability to adapt," Maya finished. "To accept uncertainty and keep going anyway. To be kind even when we don't know the consequences." Above them, through the facility's now transparent walls, the quantum weather patterns of nearby systems swirled in their eternal dance of probability and possibility. Maya watched them with new understanding, seeing not chaos, but the endless creativity of a universe that needed both light and shadow, both certainty and uncertainty, to truly live. "What happens now?" she asked, as the crystalline ship docked with the transformed facility. Dr. Chen smiled. Now we got whole new fields of quantum physics to explore." And he winked. "I hear the weather patterns have been particularly interesting lately." Maya grinned, feeling quantum possibilities dancing around them like starlight. The universe, she had learned, was far stranger and more wonderful than she'd ever imagined. And the greatest discoveries always began with a simple choice to be kind, to be brave, to embrace uncertainty while holding on to hope. After all, she thought as Prism emerged from the crystalline ship to greet their transformed former enemies, in a universe of infinite possibilities, hope itself was a kind of quantum weather pattern, unpredictable, powerful, and absolutely essential to life itself.